Christian parenting.
Welcome to the Called to Love podcast, where we discuss all things adoption and foster care and dive into the practical, the clinical, and most importantly, the biblical perspectives to help you and your family thrive. I'm Summer Colbert, adopted mom, director of adoption and foster ministry, and champion for the Arkansas Baptist Children and Family Ministries. Adoption and foster care aren't just a process. They are both unique invitations to go on a journey with the Lord, where you will experience life-changing opportunities to grow in your faith and learn to love in an entirely new way. One thing is for sure, being called to love means you will never be the same. Welcome back, families, to Called to Love. I am so excited to share a very special conversation with you today. My guest is Rebekah Finney, and she is an adoptive mom. But we're going to talk about finding the goodness of God in the long journey of adoption and foster care, because it is a journey, and Rebekah has an incredible one to share with you today, as her journey actually began with an infertility story and all of the grief and loss that goes with that, and the Lord slowly changing her heart and gifting her with talents in the nursing field to be able to serve a family through foster care and ultimately find adoption on the other side of that. Listeners, you're going to love this conversation and you're going to quickly fall in love with Rebekah. Let's dive in. Rebekah, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Summer. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be with you.
I am really excited. Okay, friends, our beloved producer of Called to Love, Zoe, connected Rebekah and I. She was attending a women's event for her church, and Rebekah, you came and spoke and you shared your story. And Zoe and I were sitting down, and she was like, "You have to have Rebekah on your show. Her story is incredible, and it is going to minister to the listeners." And so here we are today. So I am thrilled. It's been kind of a logistical craziness getting us together. So thank the Lord it has happened, and I am so excited to have you. So this is just going to be a great time today. Listeners, you're in for a treat. So there's so much to your story, and I want
Mhm.
to be able to just give you space to share a little bit
Yeah.
about that. And it includes infertility, it includes
Mhm.
loss, it includes foster care and adoption. So basically everything that
Mhm.
applies to our listeners today, and myself included, you're going to have the opportunity to minister to us through your story. So let's just begin with your story, Rebekah.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. It has been, as you just mentioned, so many layers to our story. But I always um, like to say that God writes the best stories. It's
Yeah.
it's usually not the story or the way that we would choose it, but it's good. So our story started. My husband and I got married, and we moved right away up to Michigan and started our married life together. I had gone back to school to be a nurse. I was a brand new nurse, and we, like I said, a newlywed and all of that. So we had a little time together, and then, like most people do, we had our plans to start our family. And so we, after about a year or so, then I got pregnant for the first time, just ecstatic, overjoyed, just truly excited about the timeline of everything. But quickly, soon after I found out, I lost that baby to miscarriage. And
Mhm.
so we were, devastated,
Yeah.
to say the least, but had hope too, that as we grieved, that, we could try again, and, you know, um, in the right timing, that things would work out. And
Yeah.
so we were in Michigan for a couple of years, and then we actually got to move down to Knoxville in Tennessee with my husband's job. Right when we moved, I found out I was pregnant again. So we're like, Lord, okay, this is the timing.
Yeah.
This was his plan. This is how it's going to work out. We were closer to family then. Um, and really, the same thing happened early on. Had another miscarriage, and it was just deeply painful again.
Mhm.
And you really struggle with those questions. Why is this happening? Lord, I had this all worked out in my mind, this
Right.
timeline, and so we ended up, doing checking into doing some further medical testing, looking into things. Long, long journey of all of that.
Yeah.
And I will just kind of sum it up from we did all of initial testing all the way through all of the fertility help that you can get.
Yeah.
We started slow and then did every procedure that we could do. Um, in that process, I had a third and fourth miscarriage.
Mm,
And again, the questioning, the not understanding, the Lord, why is this happening? And you can go through a really dark time in your heart, in your mind. I can remember, I tell people just physically being on the floor in the bathroom, just, Lord, I don't understand.
yeah.
And you can go down rabbit holes of I've done this for you, or I haven't done this, and this person has lived to this, made these choices, and
Right.
they have children. It just, it was a cycle of a lots of doubt and questioning. And Lord, where is your goodness? So through that process, just if I can kind of hone it in, God began to bring people into our lives that would speak different things about foster care. And I'm a nurse. I've always worked in the neonatal intensive care unit around all these babies,
Oh, wow.
which has been a great privilege, but also it was painful at times.
Yeah.
So the Lord would bring these foster families in unique situations, and it just really impacted me, and He began to change my heart. And I mean, but still early in the journey, I can remember as my husband and I started thinking, okay, what does God want us to do? And I remember sitting in my bedroom saying, I just don't think I could adopt.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what we're supposed to do. And my husband was a little bit further ahead than I was
Yep.
in that. But anyway, he brought, people to our church. He brought like the executive director of our pregnancy resource center who down the road saw one of our children's birth moms. Like
Wow.
so many cool things, how God tied the story together.
Yes.
So we ended up stepping into kind of, I say stepping because I was very hesitant, but, felt the Lord was leading us towards foster care.
Okay.
So we stepped into that journey of foster care um, a little bit, I will honestly say, kicking and screaming, just based on the grief and loss that I had experienced.
Yeah.
But I knew God was leading us into this next step.
Yeah. That's so yes, I love that. I love that you're honest enough to say kicking and screaming when it and I
Yes,
also
yeah.
love that you describe this process of heart change and, when
Mhm.
we're on the other side of the story, we can see how God was orchestrating and how he was
Yes.
piecing things together, and you're talking about the context, people that you were
Mhm.
introduced to way back when it wasn't quite time yet,
Mhm.
but the Lord knew the timing,
Mhm.
he was paving the way. And I
Yes.
think about the goodness of God and the patience of a loving father who
Oh,
we're
so true.
sitting down at his feet, kicking and screaming, and we're asking
Mhm.
him questions. We're questioning him. We're questioning his goodness. We're
Mhm.
throwing tantrums essentially, and I'm gonna toss myself in that mix too. I have thrown plenty of tantrums, and our listeners know this
Yes.
where I'm like, "Jesus needs to put me in a timeout right now because I'm
Yeah.
just acting awful." But you're right,
Yeah.
the deep sorrow and the grief and the feeling
Mhm.
of your
Yes.
experiences, and he's such a good father to sit with us in those,
Mhm.
but he's also so good to while he's comforting us in our grief and in our tantrums, he's also orchestrating for our good what he knows he has for us all along, right, Rebecca?
Yes, that is so good, Summer. Just the way you articulated all of that is every emotion that I felt because it was that foundation of grief and loss.
Yeah,
But he's saying, I want you to step out in faith.
yeah,
I want you to trust me that this is the next chapter that I have for you.
yeah,
We didn't know what was going to happen. Um, and I'm happy to get into, kind of how the foster care and adoption journey played out.
yeah,
but he just he knew that that's what he had for us, and I can see now, like you said, looking back, if we had not gone through that pain, we would not have had a heart to step into another broken situation,
Mm,
of foster care, because
yeah.
he breeded that I mean, he developed that empathy
Yes.
in us for people in hard places.
Yes. Okay. I love
That didn't have before. Didn't
right.
I don't, necessarily think I had that before, and he had to have us walk through that pain to then put us in that place.
That is a great point because I think we have this false belief that God is good equals we don't experience hard things.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I don't know where that comes from other than the fact that just in
Mhm.
our flesh, we don't wanna experience hard things, and therefore we automatically blame
Yeah,
God when the
it's
hard things
painful.
happen. But to see the goodness of God in the hard things, knowing
Mhm.
that He was leading you to your ultimate calling and the ultimate
Mhm.
treasure that He had for you, I think is an encouragement, hopefully
Mm.
for our people who are listening today who are
Yeah.
still on in the pain and in the grief side of things to know
Yes.
and to hear the encouragement and the hope on the other side of your story. And I wanna unpack
Mhm.
this foster care component of your story because
Yeah.
our listeners, we lean into both topics and sometimes
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
either or, sometimes it's both and so
Yeah.
with foster care specifically, you were talking about how the Lord
Mhm.
He changed your heart and He allowed you to
Mhm.
develop a heart and an empathy so that you could step into that. But this all started with an infertility journey, and this can be
Uh-huh.
kind of a sticky topic a lot of times because
Mhm.
it can go both ways, and I'll say even for, the private agency that I work for, we counsel a lot of families to say, "Hey, listen, just because you're getting to foster a child or getting to adopt a child, it doesn't mean
Mhm.
that that's gonna fill the void of not being able to
Yes.
conceive." And so we don't wanna place that
Yes.
expectation on a child to fulfill something
Mhm.
that's, not for them to do so. Can you speak a little to that, Rebecca?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, right when we started, we did the foster care classes, and we had wonderful trainers, and, they really made that clear that, our goal with foster care is reunification,
Right.
and we are preserving, that family unit, which I know God values that too.
Yeah.
And honestly, there still was a push-pull from me. I had that heart to be able to use my experiences as a nurse
Right.
and to be able to help these families. We did have a desire to have babies. And so, to be able to help these families from my experiences, I did have that. But it was still hard. It
Yeah.
was still did come from a place of that grief and loss, and I knew that the Lord every day was going to have to give me that wisdom to be able to um, do that in His strength, and to be
Right.
able to love those families in His strength, knowing that the whole time He was really caring for my heart too.
Yeah.
He knew every place in my heart that was so wounded
Yeah.
from what we had been through. So it was a tough balance. As you were speaking earlier, I thought of this quote that I read a long time ago that said that, of course, we know those quotes of, there's purpose in the pain, but I read something one time that said that our pain makes us usable
Mm.
by God. And so I just thought, okay, Lord, I'm stepping into this. I know you've called us into this. I don't know why, but I know you have. So make us usable
Wow.
in this journey. But Summer, we didn't do it all perfect, and we fell in love with these babies. We got a call for twins, um, and my nieces were coming to stay with us. This is when we lived in Tennessee and they lived here in Arkansas. They were coming to stay with us. We literally picked them up. We got a call while we were at Cracker Barrel for these twins.
Oh, wow.
My husband was terrified, but we felt like this was our yes.
Yeah.
We said yes. Then we took my nieces zip lining in the Smoky Mountains. We are ziplining, and I kid you not, I'm talking to a DCS worker on a platform in a tree,
Yep.
working all of this
I love
out.
it.
It's just crazy. So we took these babies home. I called my sister right away. She got there. My husband was terrified, but these were tiny babies, 3 and 4 pounders.
Wow.
And I just kind of stepped into my NICU nurse mode.
Yeah.
God had prepared me with what I had been doing as a job, and I just jumped right in. And there were, of course, as time went on, I mean, I say it immediately. We fell in love with these babies.
Yeah.
But then there was, the whole aspect that we had to learn how to navigate with biological family and what that looked like and the roller coaster of court and um, all of that unknown of
Yeah.
day to day. And we ended up, one of our twins' biological parents surrendered their rights early on. And then the other parent continued and, tried to work their plan and do what they could. And then, my husband and I were trying to support them. I look back and, I do have regrets of ways that I wish that, I could have supported them better. But I do have a heart for the biological family. We have a heart for them now. But it was a hard, hard journey.
Yeah.
Um, a very hard journey.
Oh, I can only imagine. And as you're sharing that, Rebecca, it's such an example of dying to self, and
Yes.
what we're called to do because,
Yes.
you're supporting the reunification of a family, the
Hmm.
rebuilding of a family when you're trying to build your own, like that's
Yes.
your heart's
That's so
desire.
good. That's so
Right?
good,
So
Summer.
you're dying to yourself on a regular basis, and
Hmm.
you're caring for these precious lives, and you're trying to balance it all, and I really appreciate that you share the vulnerability of, "We were
Hmm.
terrified, and we didn't know what to do," and just
Yeah.
side note for any of you who are not yet in the foster care realm and you're considering it,
Hmm.
the calls never come at convenient times. I mean, they just don't, and so that's a dying to self. I mean, Rebecca and I were chatting before we hit record today, and we're like, we both established really quickly that we like a plan, we like a checklist, we like it all lined out for us.
Yes.
And so that's why it's comical that the Lord took us through, our respective
Hmm.
journeys because there is no
Hmm.
plan. There are no boxes to check. I mean,
Mm-mm.
like you just,
Mm-mm.
it is full swing, fully
Hmm.
reliant on the Lord to just,
Yeah.
survive
Yeah.
each
No
day.
control.
No control
No control.
whatsoever. So, anyway, I share that just to say I see such a beautiful picture of surrender and dying to self, and I know that that's
Hmm.
not, it. That those are pretty words, but it is not a pretty process
Mm.
to go through
Yeah.
each of those
It is
things.
not.
You said something interesting that I would love for you to touch on, and you were talking about
Hmm.
just wishing that you had supported the biological family in a different way. Can
Yeah.
you lean into that a little bit more about ways that you wish you would have done that?
Yeah, sure. We our kids from the beginning had extra needs, and they had lots of therapies with OT and PT and feeding therapy, all those things, developmental care, and so the biological parent, was asked to come alongside and expected to come to these appointments and be involved in that. And um, I really feel like there were ways that, you're building a relationship with that parent.
Right.
And I really wanted Jesus to shine through me. But, I think one of the big things that you battle, and I'm still working this out with the Lord. He's really grown me, now through it too. But you can fight this tendency of I'm better for them than you are,
Right.
or you've made these choices that would harm, the children. I'm here to protect them.
Yes.
And so really had to battle through that. And I will tell you that, just people in our circle and, you have a lot of people around you saying, um, I would say not in support of biological family,
Yes. That's a good way to put
for
it.
choice for choices that they've made. So we really had to kind of drown that out
Yes.
and try to focus on I don't know, just fighting those feelings of no, the Lord has these children, no matter where they end up. He has them. They are his. And Lord, just show me how I can battle those own feelings of I'm better for them than you.
Yeah.
And that was honestly a lot of what we struggled because I had my life together. But I mean, we know in reality, we're all broken.
Right.
It's the grace of God that holds all of us together.
Yes.
Um, so that part, just looking back, those were just some battles
Sure.
that we faced at the time.
Hey, families, did you know that Christian Parenting has an entire online store filled with resources created to help you confidently raise your kids to follow Jesus? And today, we want to offer our podcast listeners a special 15% off discount when you use coupon code PODCAST2024 at checkout. Our Christian Parenting store is filled with products for both parents and kids. These resources will help you pray for your kids, walk through life's ups and downs, and develop great faith habits at home. We have everything from prayer journals for parents, family discipleship tools and activities, and a variety of books. We also have products just for your kids like devotionals and scripture-based cards to stick in their backpacks and lunchboxes. We consider it an honor to provide you and your family the resources you need to build a strong faith foundation. You can visit christianparenting.org/store to see everything that's available, and make sure to use coupon code podcast2024 at the checkout to get your 15% off your order. Now let's get back to the conversation. Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. I think that's really important
Hmm.
because we do those thoughts and that mindset creeps in and we don't even
Hmm.
realize it, and we can even, justify it in our minds, I think, from
Yeah.
this righteousness type standpoint,
Yes.
and so but we do have to look at it's not just the children. You can't cut out a family, that they will
Yeah.
forever be family, whether they're together or
Yes.
broken, they're still a
Yes.
family, and so I with our situation specifically, our daughter was
Hmm.
adopted privately, but I had the opportunity
Uh-huh.
to go to about 3 months worth of the prenatal appointments with our daughter's biological
Oh.
mother,
Hmm.
and then we were able to meet her biological father the day of the birth and those types of they were
Oh,
gracious,
wow.
wonderful family to allow us to be a part of
Okay.
her birth experience,
Absolutely.
and so but at the time, I share that with you, it wasn't really coming
Mhm.
from a place of judgment because I understood her story and where she had come
Mhm.
from, and I was able to have
Yeah.
time to get to know her. But at the same
Yeah.
time, there is this kind of ownership mentality that takes place, like, "That's my
Mhm.
child," you know?
Mhm.
And it can drown out a heart for the other people who are involved in this family. So,
Yeah.
I think that's
That's such a
really
good
a
point.
great point that you bring about, and so lead us further down the road in your story as far as
Yeah,
there and
yeah,
how
I
long that
will.
journey was.
I will. And I just want to touch on something that you said too, made me think of something that I do just attribute to the grace of God. I never when I was a nurse in the NICU, I would, the Lord, I felt like He would put me with these families who had children who were in the DCS, or Department of Children's Services
Mhm.
custody.
Yeah,
And um and this is all, like I said, that there were many things that you know, I wish that I had a better attitude about and all of
yeah,
that. But I will say that the Lord did give me grace in one area with these families and the choices they made. Sometimes I would get a little grief from nurses at work, like you're too kind with them, or
yeah,
you're not, kind of giving them what they deserve. But I
right,
will say that was all the Lord, that He put this grace on me. I'm not upset with the parents,
yeah,
with any of our kids' parents. I'm not upset with them, but that is all the Lord's grace, because He knew the story that He would have for us. So I feel like He allowed me to have, some compassion for them and what they had gone through, because again, that is all of us.
yeah,
That could have very well been one of us, when, I had a lot of voices saying, you just, from people, you just need to cut off.
right,
You need to cut off those relationships. And like you mentioned, that is their first family.
yeah,
Um, and it is important, I feel like, especially down the road,
mm,
to maintain any possible connections that you can, as as safely possible too. But we can touch more on that later. But like you just asked, or what you just asked about our story continuing. So at 17 months with our twins, this biological parent came to me and said, I think that you and your husband need to be their forever parents.
Oh, wow.
You know, they have been with you from the beginning. You know, this parent gave it really a valiant effort and really tried, but just couldn't do what they needed to do.
Right.
And I will never forget, we were in a speech therapy session, and the parent told me this, and you know, I found myself saying, "Okay, I want you to be sure. Do you need to take some time?"
Yeah.
You know, but inside my heart was like, "Oh my goodness, these are our
Yes.
babies." You know, there was all of this just joy. And so that's how it happened. And then at 18 months, we were in court. I say that's the one thing that DCS does quickly is get these adoptions once they're moved to the adoption category. So we were there the next month
Oh,
adopting our
wow.
twins, and it was the happiest day. It also, you know, there was kind of some unexpected feelings. There was, I like to say, how the joy and the pain can exist at the same time.
Yes.
There was just some feelings of, wow, these bonds with their first family, you know, are severed. I mean, you know, they'll always be there in some fashion, but
Right.
we are now their family and their parents. And so there is a grief that comes along with that too. So both of
Yeah.
those, you know, happen at the same time. But
Yeah.
that was their story. And just an incredible thing. And to show God's faithfulness,
Yeah.
our journey, I had my first miscarriage in December of 2005.
Okay.
And exactly 10 years later, 10 years. So this our infertility journey and foster journey, it was long. It was it was very long.
Yeah.
Lots of waiting. But exactly 10 years later, we were in court in December 2015 adopting these precious babies.
Wow. Oh,
Hmm.
that's amazing, and,
Yes.
I mean, that's just those sweet details where it's just like the Lord's
Hmm. It
reminder, "My
is.
hand's
It
in this," right?
is. Yeah. He just so many details along the way that he just whispered to our heart. I've had every detail of this. I knew that you are going to go through all of this with the infertility, and we like to say we struggled with this along the way. Hey, we aren't able to have children, so we're going to adopt.
Yeah.
And we feel like our story really was, no, we went through some really hard years
Yeah.
of infertility and loss,
Yeah.
but it was what God had for us all along to, well, to prepare us for what He had for us all along.
Yeah.
So it was just the path to get there
Yes.
to what He had for us.
That's such a beautiful example, just the mindset that you're communicating to us because
Hmm.
and I hope y'all hear my heart on this. This is not to belittle, but we don't
Hmm.
realize again the mindset that we get into of, well, this doesn't work to get me what I want, so I'm going to do this to get what I want, right? It really
Right.
is. This has been my experience. I'm trusting the
Hmm.
Lord with it. He's leading me
Hmm.
here. And then I discovered along the way what he had for me all
Yeah.
along, right?
Yes. So good.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
So
just
good.
beautiful, and I mean, it's interesting you share that because our journey was a 10-year journey as well, and
Was it
so
really?
it was,
Oh,
and
wow.
so we yes, and our listeners know this, I've shared the story, in previous
Uh-huh.
episodes, but yeah, we started a process, and then it was a 10-year process really just to see God's
Wow.
direction come
Mm.
through a lot of just really a lot of challenges, a lot of,
Mhm.
ambiguity and like, "Lord, what are you doing? Why are we doing this? Why have you
Yes.
called us it? This hurts. I don't want
Yes.
to."
Yes.
All the things that you're able to
Yes.
say. So I really appreciate you talking about joy and pain existing at the same time, and let's
Mhm.
go back to kind of those moments where we're feeling maybe a little bit trapped in our angst because
Mhm.
we're still in the hard. We don't have the answers on the other side of the story yet. We
Mhm.
haven't seen it come to fruition. We
Mhm.
haven't God has not chosen yet to reveal what He
Yeah.
has for us, and so
Yeah.
in the interim, as we're walking through all of that, what does it look like to lean into the Lord and to wrestle well and to struggle well through the hard
Mhm. I think struggle is such a great word, very descriptive of what it's like. I often referred to it as a roller coaster. It just felt up and down. And I got to the point to where I would, when I would wake up in the morning, I would say, Lord, I'm not getting out of this bed if you're not going with me.
I love that.
I need you for every step, every, you know, appointment where they say, I'm sorry you're not pregnant, or I'm sorry you've lost the baby. I need you for every step of that. And then you call us into this next season and I need you for every, biological family visit, every court case. I mean, it got to where it grew my faith, Summer. It took me from I was a believer growing up, but it took me to I surrender. I
Mm,
I am yours.
yes,
I only want what you want for me,
yeah.
but you're gonna have to carry me through it because I'm kind of crawling right now.
Yes,
So he did, and I say that Jesus and Chick-fil-A got me through our foster journey
I love
because I
that.
would leave DCS and go get a number one and just find that comfort, that small comfort through the journey.
That's
But
amazing.
no, in all seriousness, it was just that every day, just, you know, leaning on scripture, really digging for that truth and claiming it. I had an incredible mentor who poured into me, and she would call me and she would talk to me for an hour and just pour
Yeah.
all of God's truths on me.
Mm,
And He is good. That's who He is. He can't help but be good because that is His character.
yeah,
He is faithful. He can't help but be faithful because that is who He is.
yeah,
And she would just speak all of those things. He's got a plan. I don't understand why you're going through this, but nothing's wasted with him. He's going to use it all.
yeah,
I mean, I had all those things just plastered, I think, on my wall, in my heart,
yeah,
that everything had a purpose.
yeah,
And of course, we see it now on this end, but
yeah,
there's just something, as you know, Summer, that God does in the waiting
yeah.
that that is just immeasurable.
Yes.
I did write down a quote. I did want to quote it. I saw it on Toby Mac's page on Instagram, and I thought this is so good. Just about waiting,
Mm,
and I thought I don't want to get this quote wrong. um, Let me see if I can find it. Um, Another thing that I just thought of too, like while I'm thinking of that waiting, how we talked about earlier about that joy and pain. As I was talking about how I just would dive into the scriptures to just find that encouragement. There is a scripture. I think it's in 2 Corinthians, just Paul and all of his hardships. And he talks about that, how that weeping, of course, stays for the night. But he talks about we have sorrow, yet we are always rejoicing.
mm,
Okay. We have that weeping that comes from the night. Actually, that is in the Psalms verse. But the one from 2 Corinthians was that we have nothing, yet we possess everything.
yeah,
So it's like that sorrow and joy
yeah,
exist at the same time. And
yeah.
that just gave me such comfort.
Mm,
Um, and that where does my help come from? My help comes from Him.
yeah,
I had to just claim all of that.
yeah,
Um, this is what he said. What God does in us as we wait is often more important than what we are waiting for.
yes. That's
Oh,
so
that's
good.
so good.
Yes.
So good.
I love that. That's fantastic, and
Hmm.
that's so true, and it's beautiful to be able to see that testimony lived out in you on this side of the
Mhm.
story, and I can echo that as well on my side of the
Yeah.
story, but, going through it is messy and it's hard, and we wanna acknowledge that. I think one of the things that
Mhm.
I feel pressed to, and we're closing out our conversation today, but I just feel
Yeah.
pressed to ask you this question, to speak on behalf of the
Sure.
listener that's like, "This entire conversation is just making me angry." You know, because and I wanna be real about that, because
Yeah,
there are
that's who you
times
are.
in our
Yes.
journey where it's like, I don't wanna hear that God is good. I don't wanna hear
Yeah.
that He loves me. I don't wanna
Yeah.
hear that He's faithful. I'm seeing Him,
Mhm.
grant blessings and the desires of the hearts of
Yes.
others around me, but it is not happening for me. I don't understand it. I
Mhm.
don't want this lesson. Whatever this is, I don't want any part of it. I love
Yeah.
God. I'm His child, but I'm not a happy child right now. And so,
Mhm.
can you speak to that listener today that
Yes.
I feel like there's somebody listening who that's where they're at
Yes.
right now?
Yes. I want to say to that listener specifically that, and it makes me so teary to say it, but I see you.
Yeah,
That was me. That, still is me in certain, parts of my life.
yeah,
But I love speaking to women, especially. And I just spoke to our women's group at church on Valentine's Day about how God is the God who sees us.
yeah.
So he sees you. And I think especially as women, sometimes we can feel very unseen.
Yes.
But I get it. It is so hard. I know every baby shower, every, call to tell me that they were pregnant.
Yeah,
It was like, okay, this is a cruel joke
yeah,
now. This is
right.
this is not fun anymore. And Lord, why? I asked him why so many times. And I just want to say, he is for you. His best. He has his best for you. He has not forgotten you. He does have good for you. One example that I just want to share how he would always say that to me because I was in the pit,
Yeah,
literally was in the pit.
yeah,
And we had transitioned into our foster journey. And every time I would get in the car, and I mean, these were not always fun interactions. There was, lots of hard stuff,
yeah.
that we had to walk through. But every time I would get in the car, that song by Chris Tomlin, Good, Good Father, would come
Oh,
on.
wow.
And I would say, okay, Lord, yeah, I hear you're good. I hear you're trying to tell me that.
Yep.
But that would come on. And then it kind of got to be like, not a joke, but kind of comical that
Yes.
then I would, months later, and we would get in the car, and head to court.
Yeah,
My husband, that song would come on.
of course.
It was just every time. And then when we walked through, when we were ending our journey with our twins, um, when that day that the biological parent told me, that we want you to be their parents,
Yeah,
I got in the car, and what song do you think started from the beginning?
of course.
I'm a good, good father.
Yeah,
And not good because the kids came to us and they left him. He has good for them too, for their biological family. But
yeah,
that was just the Lord saying, I'm with you. I see you. I know it's hard.
yeah,
We just one foot in front of the other. Trust me.
yeah,
Trust me. I'm transforming you through this process. Trust me.
yes. Ah,
Um,
that's beautiful,
yeah,
Rebecca.
but it was, I feel it. I have the scars. I'll tell you that
Yeah,
he has healed them, but I have them
yeah. That is
from them.
so good. Yeah, that right there, scars, because
Yeah.
we regardless, there's this myth, honestly, that we can control our
Yeah.
choices and our existence so that we can walk through this existence we call life unscathed. And
Mm,
going back
mm-hmm,
to, even just the foster care or the adoption conversation,
mm-hmm.
you came into that. A lot of people will say, like, I couldn't do that," because they're basically guarding their hearts, I guess is my point and all of
Yes,
that, and
yes, we do hear that a lot, don't we?
we do, and I
Hmm.
understand what people are
Yeah.
saying, but at the same time, with your experience alone, I mean, you had experienced tremendous loss and grief, and
Hmm.
and you hadn't stepped into the world of foster care and adoption at that point,
Right.
and so it's not about self-protection and guarding our hearts in that way
Mm,
and trying to control in such a way so that we don't experience hard things. And
yeah.
so it does. It takes a very long journey. Like we've
Mhm.
been talking about this whole conversation. It really is a journey with the Lord to cultivate a heart of surrender and trust
Mm,
and faith and let
yeah,
him do the work. And I love that quote, and it's just basically saying it's not about what we're trying to get, it's about what we're experiencing and how we're growing along the way. And
yeah,
that's the goal, that's the journey, and we trust the Lord with the result and all of that.
yes,
So, I
yeah.
thank you so much for just being willing to share your story. This is just
Oh,
it's
I'm
ministered to
happy
me
to.
greatly. So,
I'm
listeners,
happy
I
to.
know that you have just loved Rebecca, and Rebecca, do you have, a way that they can connect with you further or, lean into any of the resources that you do in ministry?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I am just a local gal that will, jump in and speak at our church for women's events, but I'm happy. That is my heart. I would love to do that anywhere, but I am just on social media. It's Rebecca Price Finney. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram under Price Finney. Um, and of course, I'm happy to share my email too, if you would like that.
Absolutely. Okay, listeners, I'm gonna
Mhm,
have that in today's show notes in case
mhm,
a part of Rebecca's story has just really resonated with you
mhm.
and you would like to connect with her further. I want opportunity to do that. So that'll be in today's show notes. Rebecca, thank you
Yes.
so much for your time
Thank you,
today.
Summer. It was such a privilege.
You're a blessing. Thank you so much for listening to Called to Love today. I love to hear from listeners, and so I would love to connect with you to hear your stories and answer your questions right here on the show. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram, send me a direct message, or send me an email at the link in today's show notes. I pray you have been encouraged by today's episode to walk in faith and continue to embrace your own call to love. Until next time, blessings, sweet friends.